Howdy, welcome to the Mays MasterCast. I'm your host, Ben Wiggins, and we are fired up for today's discussion. The vision of the Mays MasterCast is to connect prospective members to our Mays community by painting the picture of Aggieland through different voices and perspectives. Today's guest, Shayla Clifton, received her BA in Business Administration from Sam Houston State University. During her time at SHSU, Shayla interned for CHI St. Joseph Health in Bryan, Texas for a semester and was then hired on as a marketing coordinator. Upon graduation, she went to work for L'Oreal Maybelline Marketing Department in New York City. She began her role as Program Coordinator 2 for the MS Marketing program at Texas A&M University's Mays Business School in March 2021. Prior to joining the Masters of Marketing program, she had also worked in the Department of Statistics at TAMU. Outside of work, Shayla enjoys operating SoCo Sno in the summer, traveling, volunteering for the Junior League at Bryan College Station, and spending time with her husband and their two Yorkies, Vivi and Scooter. Welcome to the show, Shayla Clifton. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super honored to be here.
It is our pleasure. You have had quite the educational and professional journey. Tell us a little bit about the role that education has played for you.
Yeah, so my educational background, I think, is really interesting. I went the non-trad route. I graduated high school and I was like, I'll go to community college. It's fine. Not a big deal. And then I went to community college and I hated every second of it.
Oh.
I just realized that college, wasn't for me in that season of life. So quit after, taking a few classes, and then really started kind of honing in on my career path, I guess you would say. I started at a car dealership in the back office, kind of working on just administrative tasks, and realized that I really liked working and I valued the workplace kind of more than I did education, like I was saying. So as I got further and further into it, I realized that education was pivotal to my professional growth because I was, hitting a lot of barriers in what I could do. So decided to go back to college at, I think I was 25 at the time. So a little older, not old, obviously, but it felt different being in class, with younger students and having seen life, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And I appreciated it so much more because not only was I paying for it, but just understanding where it was going to get me in life. So finished college, I was 28. And then that just kind of I guess exploded me into my professional career because I at that point I didn't have the barriers that I was hitting from the beginning of not having a bachelor's degree.
What made you dislike the academic environment earlier on?
I just don't think that I was prepared to have that structure of the classroom. You go into high school and I think having the freedom of being able to set my own schedule and stuff like that, I enjoyed not having structure for a little bit after high school.
Sure.
So I think that I really hung on to that rather than craving structure from the classroom.
Okay.
So.
And then when you realized so if you were needing unstructured time at that point in your life, then what were the moments or what were the transitions that helped you come to a place where you maybe not craved the structure, but it could at least tolerate it?
Yeah, I think obviously growing up and recognizing that to be a thriving adult, structure is necessary. You're not just wandering all over the place. There is some structure, some routine. And I think that that's really what I wanted was routine. So.
We can't just wander all over the place.
I know.
Because that's what I want to do.
I know.
So having previously worked for Maybelline and as the marketing coordinator at St. Joseph Health, what's different about the business environment at Texas A&M and Mays Business School?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. I think obviously working in corporate, working for obviously St. Joseph's is a local business, but being run by Catholic Health Initiatives, it's the largest Catholic organization in the U.S. So we had that corporate structure above us, and then working at Maybelline, that corporate structure, and working in the beauty industry in general, is definitely different from A&M. Just, I think the academics, I feel like we're kind of insulated in academics from the real world, in a sense that our focus is students. It's not necessarily a product that we're pushing, or necessarily a service, even though we have all of those things to offer, be it classroom settings and that. It feels a little bit more insulated.
Okay. Then if we think of our customer as students, then, and obviously it's a little more complicated than that, but if we think of students as a primary customer, then what do you think is different about the interaction between Mays or Texas A&M and its students from another company, say a for-profit company who has whose students are very present in the day-to-day operations of the business? How do you feel like that whole process shifts as a result of the structure? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it does. I don't want to say the pressure's off from a corporate setting, because obviously I think the pressure for students to succeed and being a part of students' development in their success is obviously very important in my job, currently. But I feel like in a corporate structure, the for-profit industry, there's so much pressure to push your product. And in a sense, we are pushing our product, but it's just so much more in a corporate environment.
Do you think that's different at a publicly run company where, quarterly P&Ls and, earnings calls and all of that are sort of, you're always staring down the barrel of the next one, versus a large privately held company where long-term growth is might be a little bit more of the mandate?
Oh, yeah. Looking at P&Ls and having that be the focus, it's just different metrics, we are, as Mays, as A&M, we are basing our metrics off of something different. So
sure.
It's hard to explain that difference, I don't know. That's a really interesting way that I don't think I've thought about it in that way, until you asked me. But
thanks.
Yeah, good question.
Oh, thank you. So outside of the office, what do you do to continue to push your boundaries? Because it seems like you're a person who's comfortable with transition and change and expansion. What else are you doing?
I have a little side gig. SoCo Sno. It's a snow cone stand.
SoCo.
As a mid 30-year-old, I never dreamt that I would. I never dreamt that I would own a snow cone stand, but it kind of came out of COVID. My husband and I, we were, obviously everything was shut down, unfortunately. We were craving like a local mom and pop snow cone. We're from West Texas, so that's what we were craving. And I was like, it would be so much fun if we just had it, because I had worked at a snow cone stand whenever I was younger back home, and I was like, we should just open it, and that thought kind of lingered, and then I thought, no, we should really do this. So we got to work, and we kind of, put our heads together, started thinking about what we could do. My husband built it from the ground up. And then it happened. You know, we opened up April 2021, and it's seasonal, obviously.
Sure.
I would totally eat a snow cone in the winter, but I know that that's not necessarily
not everyone feels that. Well,
yeah.
A lot of people can be wrong. We'll fight for their right to be wrong. That's what this country's built on.
Yeah. So we're seasonal, like I said, and we closed down for the winter. And then the winter is kind of like that time for me to reflect on how everything's gone in the summer and make changes to anything I feel necessary. So it's been fun. You know, I look at it as my creative outlet because my job doesn't really allow me, even though I work in marketing, it's more quantitative rather than creative. So it's nice to kind of have that break.
Well, I appreciate you choosing the name SoCo Sno. My wife does not like the SoCo thing, so I love it, and I take every opportunity to troll my beloved wife with the SoCo thing. So I appreciate you choosing that name. One of the most striking things I've heard you say is that you are so proud of the life you've built, and you are so happy. That for many people, happiness seems to still be a frontier, and for others, in this moment, it's never seemed farther away. What do you think what has been the most surprising secret to happiness for you?
Oh gosh, secret to happiness. You know, looking back, I had a great childhood. Like, I had very supportive parents. Again, they kind of like let me relish in my creativity, whether it was like playing with cash registers and building little stores like that. You know, I guess I've always had an entrepreneur mindset. But then I guess as I've gotten older, it hasn't necessarily been a pursuit of happiness, I guess you could say.
Okay.
It's just been like, I'm just so proud and I seek the things that I like. And I actually was just having this conversation with my husband. Like, as I've gotten older, I've become more and more decisive on the things that I do and don't like. And I'm not going to do the things that I don't like.
What's an example of a thing you don't like that you won't do?
I will not wake up at 5 a.m. to work out.
Okay.
I will wake up at 6:15 to work out, but I'm not going to wake up at 5 a.m.
But that hour and 15 minutes is mine.
Yes. It's so necessary for me to like recharge. Like, I've done 5 a.m. classes and I'm not going to do it.
I'm kind of in the same boat.
Yeah.
Kind of in the same boat.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just, I look back at just my life in general, you know, 20s and then going into my mid 30s. I'm like, I'm just so proud. Like, I look back and there's nothing that I wish. Obviously, there are things that I could have done a little differently to make it easier on myself. But
sure.
Yeah, I really enjoy my life, and I am thankful, you know, to be able to say that I enjoy my life, because I know that that's so often not the case.
Yeah, I think it's a tremendous challenge for many people. You said I think one of the most important things you said was that you had very supportive parents. And that sounds to me like you had parents who did not put you on the hamster wheel of success from the early going.
Yeah, my parents, I will say, I think that my parents wish that I probably was better in school whenever I was younger. You know, they wish that I would have studied more. They wish that I would have actually done my homework, you know, and that kind of stuff. But I think that going back to me being as decisive as I am now, I've always had a sense of stubbornness. So they just kind of knew not to push me, because the more that they pushed, that I was just going to not do it. So I think that they got to a point to where it was just like, this is Shayla. Not that they had given up by any means, but they were just like, this is our daughter, you know, and she is decisive. And I think that they were just proud of who I was, instead of trying to push me into something else.
Sure. Well, the beautiful thing about that is you obviously have like things have come full circle in a manner of speaking. Like you have a job and your own business.
Right.
And I mean, not that that is required for success.
Yeah.
Like success is whatever we make of it. But if they were looking for a path that would take you to what we in America in 2022 would very much consider sort of that is sort of the, I don't know, the American dream, to have both financial stability and pretty significant financial opportunity as well. Like that's, you know, that it's great that they let you get there on your own. And one of the most important things that my wife and I hold ourselves accountable for is to let our kids be themselves.
Yeah.
And to give them opportunities, but never to, like, I hear it all the time from other parents. I hear it's not just being proud of your kids, it's be proud of me because my kid is doing this thing. And it just feels so fraught to me. And we try, I don't know how good a job we do, but we try every day to stay away from that and to be proud of our kids all the time, but to stay well away from the, like, tying our own identities up in, like, whether our kids are walking at the same age that other kids are walking, whether they're talking at the same age that other kids are talking, and to extract our own self-esteem from how they're doing, like what their progressions look like. And just, I try not to know. I don't want to know. So
it's super challenging. I think in a world of what you're saying, of just the pressure to be successful, you know, it's like, successful, who says what is successful?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's back to my point of me being decisive. Like, I obviously, you know, care about what people think, but I don't let it overwhelm me. You know, this is who I am. This is all I have to offer. So take it or leave it.
What are some of the things that you then struggle with?
I think imposter syndrome obviously is something that I deal with. All of the things that I've accomplished, sometimes I feel like, you know, maybe if I'm sitting in board meetings, like, do I belong here? Like, is this right? You know, I start to question that. So sometimes I feel like that is, I don't want to say an overwhelming feeling for me, but it's definitely present.
It's such a common thing. I think everybody deals with it to some degree or another. One of the things that I think is really not nefarious, what's the word I'm looking for? Really sinister about imposter syndrome is that there are all kinds of manifestations of it. And someone who, as I alluded to a moment ago, doesn't experience it in one area of their life, it could show up in like with flying colors is not the right term. I'm using a lot of like misnomers this morning. So
no, I think you're right. I see where you're going. Like in my life, my personal life, I don't necessarily experience imposter syndrome. Like my husband and I have been married, you know, for 7 years, you know, and I feel content, or not content. That sounds, I hate that. It has a negative connotation, but I feel secure, you know, and I feel successful. I feel proud of that. But then if we're looking back to my professional life, like, again, I feel confident of where I've been and I am proud of where I've come from. But then there's a little bit every time that I take a step forward, you know, I'm like, oh, no, like, is this okay? You know, like I start to question myself and I'm like, no, this is what you've been working towards.
Like Squid Game, trying to see if the pane of glass is going to break.
Yeah. So I don't know, you know, every once in a while it kind of creeps in, but I feel for the most part, you know, it's obviously it's good, but there is that struggle sometimes.
Yeah. As one of the current marketing program coordinators here at Texas A&M, what is something you wish you could say to your younger self now that you have this opportunity that you would now want to share with current Maze students?
find a goal, and it sounds so cliche, but set a goal and really push towards that. It may not have to be specific. It's not like one day I said, I'm going to be a program coordinator for the marketing department at Mays. But, if a career ladder is what you want to climb, then set your heart out and do it and push towards that and seek connections and network and find people that are going to support you along the way and find a way to get there.
What has been unexpected about seeking connection and finding mentors and all of that process? What's been different than what you expected, even as someone who came into your academic life with a little bit more life experience? What then turned in ways that you did not foresee?
I think so often we look at Texas A&M and College Station as a small town. But then you get into Texas A&M and you're like, oh my God, it's huge. You think, oh, well, I'm just going to know everyone. Like, it's fine, no big deal. But it has been, really seeking out. I've had to be very intentional in seeking out my connections and seeking out people that I want to learn from or find something that they have that they can teach me. So yeah, that has been mind blowing to me of how big Texas A&M really is, you know?
And how big College Station really is. We've got our own little burbs now, like SoCo. Considering your passion for growing and exceeding your own expectations, what is next for you, SoCo Sno, and your ventures in marketing? What you mentioned, find a goal. What is your goal? What's around the corner?
I mean, I would be crazy to say that promotion, obviously. I don't know what necessarily that promotion means. I don't know if it means staying with marketing department. I don't know if it means, but obviously always looking forward and never really becoming complacent in the place that I am today professionally. What's next for SoCo Sno? I think just
world domination.
Yeah, world domination, of course.
At least in the summer.
Yes. I think just, getting our name out there as small, again, referencing back how small College Station can feel sometimes. There's so many people that don't know about us. So obviously promoting that and kind of creating a brand out of that has been fun and challenging all in one. I'm
sure.
So
you got any merch?
We do. We have T-shirts and stickers.
Hats?
We do have caps.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to swing by and get one for myself and get one for the kids. My wife will never wear it, but because she knows what the intent really is.
Yeah.
But I will wear a SoCo Sno hat.
Awesome.
I will wear, if you can get me a hat, I will wear a SoCo Sno hat on the Mays MasterCast.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I will totally, I'll make it happen.
Okay. Let's do it. Any good bull?
Man. So many good bowls. I know it may just be one, but I'm going to always pushing the boundaries. I'm going to do 3. I have 3, like I call them my leading ladies in my life. They're my 3 best friends that obviously I don't think you ever seek out to have best friends, but I didn't ever think that these 3 people could exist in my life.
Yeah.
You always hear people about having these super deep friendships, but Heather Bush, she kind of took a chance on me at St. Joseph's as a older intern. And I say that because obviously being older, I think the goal was a career, right?
Sure.
So she could have had a younger student come in and just been done with them after the internship was over. But then she was, looking for someone else. And so she asked me if I could come on full-time, not full-time, part-time, sorry. So I kind of made a position out of my internship and added value to the company. So
good job by you.
Yeah, thanks. I don't think that I could have obviously done that without Heather. And obviously she's become like a dear friend and someone I admire professionally. all in that, I met Kelly, Kelly Wood. She was kind of like my partner in crime professionally. She had been there a little bit longer than me, and she kind of showed me the way, I guess, of St. Joseph's. But not only that, she became a really good friend as well. And she's someone that I look to and for any advice. And she's just always kind of a cheerleader, in my support system and whatever it may be, professionally or personally. So, I mean, I couldn't do it without them. And then also Erin Marietta, she's had a crazy life. She was in the Navy, and then she got out in the Navy, went corporate, met her at St. Joe's too. And she's just awesome. Like, she's someone that I can turn to and know that the truth is there, whether it be good or bad. And I say she sets me straight, all the time. So, but it's always with compassion. And I know that she has my best interests at heart. So, it's just incredible to have, that foundation of friends and someone that I can turn to, for whatever. So,
was there like a weekend or a trip or something that you all took together that was like the movie version of your relationship?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if this is appropriate.
That sounds like a yes.
Yeah, there definitely was a trip. It was actually kind of coming out of COVID. September 2020, we were like tired of being cooped up. So we had been talking about for years trying to take a trip, but obviously our schedules, they have kids, just never worked out. So finally we just escaped to Port Aransas, and obviously things were shut down, but we rented an Airbnb and we just kind of made the best of it, and it was so fun. We all hang out all the time here in College Station, but I think getting out of College Station and not having kids, husbands, or anything around it, it was just a blast. And like, we reference memories from that trip all the time. So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Shayla, thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching. We appreciate your support. Drop us a like below and feel free to leave a comment if you wish. We appreciate positivity and constructive feedback. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on our latest episodes and bonus content. You can also take us on the road using your favorite podcast listening app. We have those linked below. If you'd like to know more about Mays Business School or our guests, visit mays.tamu.edu/podcasts. Talk with you soon.